Courage is the most important of all the virtues because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You see? You can't be consistently kind or fair or humane or generous, not without courage. Because if you don't have it, sooner or later you'll stop and say, the threat is too much, the difficulty is too high, the challenge is too great.
Hey everybody, I'm Cedric Hawkins, and welcome to episode 41 of the Ced Talks podcast. Today is Sunday, October the 25th of 2020 at the time of this recording. And once again, thank you all so much for tuning in at this time. My guest today is my uncle, but not only is he my uncle, he's very insightful, very smart. I know he's got some very encouraging words to give here on the show today. So without further ado, I give it to you, Mr. Sean Hawkins. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hello, Cedric. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good, man. This has been a long time coming. You've been a big supporter of the show since I started it back in April, and so I'm glad to have you on.
Oh, appreciate that, man. Any kind of way I can help, man. You know, I'm always here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And so first things first, I want to talk about COVID. When everything hit back in March, everything got shut down. What was your initial reactions to everything? Did you think like everything was shut down like it did?
No, actually, I honestly, I could tell you that I would never have thought in a million years that something like this would ever happen. I mean, last time I think I read something about a pandemic, anything of this nature happened, I think it was probably 100 years ago with the Spanish flu.
Yep.
And yeah, you would think with all the technology and medical advances that we have, I think seeing something like this happen, I couldn't fathom in a million years. So I'm very surprised.
Yeah, it was very, surreal. I especially didn't think everything would get shut down like it was, to the point where we could only go out for work or groceries, and basically that was it. Like, it was
Right.
extremely, I guess, scary and stressful, but also I guess you had to, take everything in and just had to accept it for what it was.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things that as time goes on, I think that we're all going to be introduced to something that makes us kind of change things. You know how they say, we won't go back to the old norm. I guess they use the term the new norm, and I guess every generation we're always going to have something that makes us kind of change the way we do things, change the way we look at things, and just take a step back and reflect and see what we have to do to just make sure things like this won't happen again.
Right, exactly. And so you had to telework from home. You had to basically work from home in the beginning, and you're still doing it now. So when that first happened, how big of an adjustment was that for you?
It was a huge adjustment. I think mainly it was an adjustment for me because being that I work with the school system, I think it took everybody back and realizing that people just weren't prepared for it, and kind of you having to speed the process up, and that just causes a lot of pandemonium, a lot of frustration, and things along those lines. So, I mean, it really made you think that okay, you got to prepare for things like this in a better way. You just got to have the foresight to be able to see things like this, especially when some people can see it and they give you certain tidbits and certain, I guess, not advice, but I would say certain, just certain signs that they can see. And then you have to just take that into consideration to just say, okay, maybe we need to take this into consideration, like they saying, and just, make the right preparations. But that just wasn't the thing with the school system I work in, and a lot of school systems I think around the country just weren't prepared. So, this is just something that is an eye opener. The whole thing is an eye opener.
Yeah, exactly. And so with those emotions that you had back in March, from that time period up until the summer when things started to open up, what really kept you grounded? Because I'm sure a lot of people were stressed and had different emotions. But
Right.
what kept you grounded?
Just realizing that, honestly, before anything else, I would have to just say, I put my faith in God, and the Lord. I use that as my foundation to realize that every day is not going to be a great day, So using that as an anchor to get through each day, especially right now with everything taking place with this pandemic. using that as an anchor, and to just realize that you got to take it one day at a time. I think, and just wherever the chips may fall, you just got to accept it and just find some light, at the end of that tunnel. So just trying to stay positive, I think.
Yeah, and you pretty much gave me that advice in the beginning too, because there were times where, I kind of like doubted myself and thought like, man, when's this ever gonna end? Like, when are things gonna start opening and I can just live again? But
Right.
you have to find that light at the end of the tunnel, because sometimes that tunnel is very, very dark and you just don't know if there's an end. But you just have to remain hopeful and, like you said, put your faith in God.
I agree with that. I mean, you as time goes on, I think it's just a learning experience. And I think it comes with time that you just learn things through the experiences and the trials and tribulations that you go through. That some things you'll grow from, and you'll realize that either I'm a fold and I'm a falter to whatever I'm going through, or I'll just use this as a learning experience and gain some kind of knowledge to move forward, grow from it, and be prepared for the next thing that takes place in life. And you'll realize things are a little more simpler once you get understanding of how life works, I think. So it all helps. I think the experience that we got to go through, you go through and you have to go through, it all just makes you, a better person. It just makes you a stronger person to just be able to live life, because life is tough sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, like, I'm sure you heard the saying, God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. Right. He won't put any stress or any pain on you if he doesn't think you can handle it. And I feel like sometimes when we're in those dark moments, it's hard to realize it and understand that we'll have that woe is me attitude or this why me attitude. But it's just like sometimes we have to be able to, take it away from ourselves, stop looking at ourselves, and kind of look at what God wants from us and what he wants us to do, what he's calling on us to do. Right. And so I think that's what has gotten me through this pandemic and what is still getting me through this pandemic. Because it's still hard, but it's just, you got to push on and keep God close. You can't push him away.
No, you can't push him away, especially not right now. Not in a time like this. I think a lot of people just don't have that kind of faith or something that they can lean on, because it's always good to have a support system, and it's very important to have a support system, I think. But there's going to be days when that support system is not available. So you need to have something, a strong foundation to lean on. That when you're by yourself, you can kind of reflect and be like, hey, I know what to do, and I know there's something greater than me, man. That's just kind of just watching and hold me down. So you can use the words of people, but sometimes you just, again, I not to make it a spiritual thing, but sometimes you need those words from God to just kind of keep you motivated, keep you just lifted, especially right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm sure the world may not get back to what it used to be last year, or probably in the beginning of this year, from January to March. But what do you think the world will be like in 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or even 5 years from now, as far as COVID and the safety precautions?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I think as far as the safety precautions, I think some people feel like this touching and embracing one another, we'll never be able to go back to the handshaking and the hugging and things like that. I don't think that's necessarily true in a sense, especially if we do get this whole vaccine thing going. I do believe if that vaccine, it is a cure, like they're hoping it is. Again, I go back and I talk about that Spanish flu back in the 1920s, I think. And, you're going to have things that happen in life. You could take 9/11, for example, and, you look at the security precautions with riding an airplane or, taking a train and things along those lines. But in a nutshell, I think we still, in a sense, people will still get back to where we once were. It will be some things that, I just think that's a little far-fetched with, like, not being able to embrace your family, your friends, and shake your hands and things along those lines. But, some other things, I don't know. I think technology will be a big thing, just being prepared to teleworking. I think that'll be a big thing now. Instead of everybody maybe working inside of a building, technology will allow a lot of people, I think, to be able to work from other places rather than just in a building with, everyone commune together in one area. I think telecommunication would be a big thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe, like you said, with telecommunication, maybe like after all of this, jobs can have
Mm-hmm.
something where like every 2 weeks out of the month, or like every 2 weeks or for every 3 months or so,
Mm-hmm.
people can just work from home and get a break
Right.
from the environment that they're in. And so
Right.
that's a possibility, and it could be a bonus. But
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe by the summer of next year, maybe things will start to get better, and we'll be able to integrate more now with masks. Do you think mask is going to be something that everybody's going to have to wear for the foreseeable future?
For the foreseeable future, maybe. I think, yeah, for the foreseeable future, maybe in the next year. I hate to say maybe, because they were thinking this thing was going to probably, this thing was going to subside and maybe, die out probably by like maybe early 2021. But I personally don't see that anymore. I mean, it just doesn't look like that's going to be, it just doesn't seem like it's feasible right now. But I do see maybe like late 2021, 2022. I mean, I think that'll be when like the mask thing. I don't think that's another thing again with like the embracing the touching. I don't think the mask thing will be forever. I just don't think America, in general, I don't think people are going to do that forever. Especially it's hard to breathe while you're at work wearing those things all day. Some people don't wear them anyway. They'll wear it underneath their nose and stuff like that, and that defeats the purpose. So I think eventually people will that mask thing. It'll only last maybe another year, year and a half, and then I think we'll get back to just. But there might be some people out there who are just kind of cautious like that and just don't want to take the risk, and will say, I'm gonna continue wearing the mask, which is I mean, it's I would do what you do feel is best for you, but I don't think the majority of people will probably do that as far as wearing masks as time goes on. Maybe like another year and a half, but eventually it'll go back to the old norm, I think. Personally.
Yeah, I feel you. And like you always tell me, if it's in God's will and if it's in God's plan, it will happen.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
Yep,
Exactly.
yep. So shifting gears from that, I want to talk to you about something that we've talked about a lot, and it's social media and some of the cons that it's had on this generation. Maybe my generation, maybe your generation, and also adults as well. So when you think about it, what are some of the cons of social media that affects, youth today?
I think, you know, I mean, I think social media to the most part, man, is a detriment for a lot of people, and I don't think it's just for the young adults. I think it's for everybody, all individuals, to be honest with you, because the social media is almost like it's a I can't think of the word. I can't think of the word, but it's almost it's an image, and it's not necessarily a real image. You know what I mean? It's a facade. Like I've told you, it's a facade before,
Yep.
and it's just not to say it's phony, because some people on there they may be portraying them real selves, but I think overall, I think it can be a farce, and what people are looking at as when they see their friends, their peers, and celebrities and everything is an image. And I think we take that to heart, and then we kind of reflect that, and when we look in the mirror, we kind of say to ourselves like, we compare ourselves basically, and we feel like we're not up to par to where we may be based off of what we see through other people. And it has an effect on our emotions, our moods, and things along those lines. But I try to stay off there as much as possible. But it is addictive, so, and that's how they want it. They want it to be addictive like that. So, I mean, you just gotta balance it out. Or if you can, I say if you can leave it alone, completely stay off of it. I say stay off of it. That's me personally, but. There's benefits behind social media too, as far as networking, business wise, things along those lines. And if you sincerely, I feel like you want to really try to keep in touch, and with family members and stuff like it's cool to kind of just keep an update, but you just kind of got to balance it out. Just taking pictures of this and everything, your meals, your dinners, your it's just a lot. So I just figure, don't make it your life. You can't make it your life, because you're missing a whole lot of other things out here when you focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to ask you that too. Do you think people should moderate their social media use, or should they just completely get off of it altogether?
If you can stay off of it, I mean, like I said, I think it comes down to balance. How often do you use it? First of all, how many pictures do you have on there? I mean, if you have like several hundred pictures. I mean, that's a lot of pictures. I mean, that plays a big role in your life. I mean, how often do you post? Do you post every day, multiple times a day? What are you posting? I think selfies is a big thing to me. Like I'm not a fan of selfies like that. And I don't know how many people. I don't know your listeners like that. If they're gonna take this, and they're gonna they're gonna think otherwise. But I'm not a big fan of selfies. It's cool maybe once in a while to just take a picture of yourself in just some little get up or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's more to life than just these social media and images and things along those lines. But I don't know. I just say the main thing is balance it out. You got to balance it out. I say try to take out a week. Take a week out of your day or a week out of your life. Put it to the side and just see how you feel. If you can go a week without it, then I wouldn't say you that addicted. But if you can't, if you're itching to get back on there within a week, within a day or two, then you might have a problem. And me myself, I've had that problem. With cell phones in general. I know we're talking about social media, but the cell phone in general is just it's such an addictive device, and it's very hard to just put it to the side or put it somewhere because we put our lives in those devices, and it's hard to put it down. So that's what I say. I mean, our social media it can be a benefit. It can help. Again, if you have business things, business purposes, educational things, you can learn from people who post stuff on social media. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who just want to vicariously live, through other people on social media. And again, it has effect on your mental stability sometimes, I think. And, that we all know that can be a serious, serious downfall.
Yeah, like I face that problem myself. And even now, because I try to promote my podcast, I try to network with different people, try to get people to be on the show, whether it's through Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. But it's just like I also want to stay off it. Right. I also want to focus on my life, focus on my goals and what I want to do.
Right.
And so it's such a difficulty because I'll delete the app and then it's just like, oh, well, I wonder if this person got back to me. So I'll just re-download the app and I'll look to see if the person messaged me. And they didn't message me, and then I just start scrolling again, and it's like this never-ending, cycle. And then it's like, well, I had this goal, I wanted to get off it, and now I broke that goal.
Yep.
And so it's difficult.
It's that snowball effect, and it's very insidious. Insidious just is very, very cunning. And I think the people who develop social media like Facebook and Instagram and all those different social media avenues and platforms, they put a lot of time and effort into getting people to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And I've read and listened to different presentations that people have had, and they mention how social media is is addiction compared to like gambling almost. How every time you kind of pull that screen down, it'll refresh, and then it's just almost like pulling a slot machine arm or something along those lines. You're hoping for something different, something better, and something positive coming through, but a lot of times you don't get that. But again, I don't want to sound like super negative on it, but it can be very addictive, and especially with the young generation like yourself, it's a very powerful thing, because everything is in there, and with social media and the internet in general, you find the information. Like your generation has the information at your fingertips. I mean, just like we do now, but our generation back when I was coming up, we didn't have it, so we didn't know about things. Like now, y'all know just as much as we do. You know what I mean? Right. And y'all 19, 20, 21 years old, y'all have everything already in front of y'all, so y'all know as much as we do. And again, that's a positive, but at the same time, a lot of people are putting a lot of, information that's just no good, I think. And sometimes you can get strayed away from your goal and what you was on there to do. Because again, like you say, you went on there to find out about a friend or somebody, and they didn't post back or they didn't respond back, and now you've just been sucked back into that black hole again.
Yep.
And now it's going to take days, if not weeks or months, to get yourself to pull away from it. And sometimes some people don't pull away from it. They just leave it on there and they just, hey, whatever, and just kind of keep going through the cycle. And it happens all the time, I think. Again, me, myself, it happened to me plenty of times with social media, but somehow you got to pull yourself away from it.
Yeah, and I think like once you pull yourself away from it, then it becomes, finding what you can do to kind of, I guess, not kill time, but I just use the time that you were using on social media and use it for something that's benefiting you.
Right.
Not saying that social media doesn't benefit some people, because it benefits other people, because say they're trying to, do something with their product and do all that other stuff, that's benefiting them. But if it's just not benefiting you and you're at an outing and you're just on Instagram or you're on Twitter, or you're in your car and you just scroll through it when you're at a stoplight, that's not using your time wisely. Or even just sitting at home and you're just doing it because you're bored.
Right.
Like, what can you do in that time to use it wisely? What helped me was jogging, walking in the morning, reading books. That helped me out a lot, because I'm not just getting up in the morning going straight to my phone and then it's like straight to social media. So I think it's like you said, that balance of just trying to find something to kind of help you and use your time wisely.
Right. Yeah, it's all about, being idle is again, we talk about detriments. Being idle and just not using your time wisely and useful, you can kind of get sucked into things that, you weren't planning on, you didn't see, happening, I think. So you always got to utilize that time to the best of your ability, like you said, whether you're exercising, working out, spending time with, some close friends or family members, like you said, reading books. I mean, I'm pretty sure just learning something new. Learning something new. There's so many things I think you could do to occupy your time rather than just being on social media and just, things like that along those lines. Because you just don't want to. Again, that social media to succumb to that addiction. Some people, that's all they have. Is social media. And again, not to say anybody who's listening, that's what your thing is, not to say, but, there's a lot of other things that you should try to do with your time and strive to do rather than just sitting on the phone. The phone, and I don't know if it's even the social media aspect. I think maybe it is the cell phone in general, because if you think about it, how many people on social media on their laptops or on a desktop computer rather than their cell phones? So I think it might be just the cell phone in general that sometimes you got to part ways with and just kind of put it to the side for a while and just, occupy and utilize your time somewhere else. But, but that's basically what it is. I mean, your cell phone is all apps, again, and that's social media. So it's, I say, like you say, occupy your time. Like you say, read, learn something new, learn a new trade, something, work out. But just understand if that cell phone can be a problem, then maybe you might sometimes you want to just, I don't know. It takes a lot. It takes a whole lot to try to get around that the problem of social media if you have one. But occupy your time is a key.
Yep, absolutely. And so, shifting gears from that, I want to talk to you about a time when there was no cell phones. You didn't have to worry about that type of stuff. I want to talk about your childhood, growing up here in Calvert County, Maryland. What was that like for you?
Growing up in Calvert County, it was a whole lot different than it is now. I mean, it was farm. It was very rural at that time. It was, you might see Calvert County now. You might have these shopping centers, coming up, being built, and you have all these fast food spots and everything starting to come up. But when I was coming up, I think McDonald's might have been their only fast food spot, and there was only one in the county at that time. But you had a lot of farm areas, the farmland. You had like cornfields, tobacco fields, barns. You would see barns all up and down, Route 4, the main highway in the county. You would see farms just everywhere. So it was very rural. It was very country. So, and you might see some people with you might see them with bumper stickers who will say, "Keep Calvert country," and it was country at one time. But they're not trying to have that anymore. They're trying to grow it. They're trying to get business coming in. So, I mean, I understand it on both ends, because Calvert, just instead of going out of the county to having to get things, sometimes you want to bring that stuff in so you don't have to travel as much. But I understand it both ways, because it was a lot quieter back then. So, yeah, it's again something you got to weigh the pros and cons to.
Yeah, is that something you prefer, the more rural countryside area, or do you prefer the city aspect of life?
That's a good question. Coming from where it was, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because again, we never really had anything like that. You know, we still don't have a mall in the county like that. Again, you have small shopping centers, but you don't have a full mall. But malls are going out of business anyway. Um, but I would say, I don't know, because the traffic is getting a lot heavier around here.
Hmm.
It's getting a lot busier. I honestly would probably take it. I I would probably go back. You know, it was a lot less commotion. I think again, the traffic wasn't as hard. Um, you know, I would go back to a more quieter, slower pace. To be honest with you, it just seemed, you know, it was less. I think it wasn't that much strain on you mentally a little bit. You know, so I think I would go back to how it was maybe 30 years ago compared to all the building they're doing now.
No, I agree with you. I think I would like that aspect more as compared to the city aspect. Because I mean,
Hmm.
I've grown up here. Like this is the country to me.
Right.
Sure, it's become. I don't want to say urbanized. I don't know if
Hmm.
urbanized is the right word,
Yeah.
but it's become more of like a city aspect in a way with the different shopping centers and
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
You have different developments that are being built. Like across from my house, that used to be just straight up woods.
Yeah.
Now
Exactly.
all that's been cut down. There's all these houses and stuff now, and it's
Hmm.
just like, well, all that is cool. I like the country aspect more. I like the quietness. I like the trees and the
Hmm.
barns too. Like you said, I would have loved to experience that back in the day.
Right.
So I think I'd take the more country aspect side of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for example, we're having this podcast right now, where we are right now, but behind here, it was a barn. It was a barn where the house is, and you know, there's houses there now, but it was a big barn right there, and you know, you had chicken coops over there, so it was farm. It was, you know, they're trying to make it, like you said. I don't know if urbanized or maybe suburbanized
Yes,
might be the
yeah.
word,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, it was a lot more country, a lot more peaceful, a lot more being able to go out and just, you know, you could, and being young, you know, being young at that time, you were able to move and just kind of venture off and do things. And you know, kids today, they don't know that that side of things in the county. But you know, I wish it was like that again. I wish it would go back to that. But obviously, it won't be that way. But you know, it was nice at times. I mean, it's not so bad now, but I just think it's just so busy, and it could be a lot of commotion from time to time, especially when you work up in PG County, you're trying to come down full into the county, and then you just hit a traffic jam because of some accident, which happens, it seems, very frequently on four for some reason. I can't figure out why, but it was a lot better. I think a lot more peaceful, a lot more docile, and you know, it just, again, mentally, it was a lot less stressful, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
so I want to ask you next about nutrition. I know you're big into nutrition. You know, you've kind of helped me implement some healthy habits in my life when it
Hmm.
comes to changing my diet up. What swayed you to make the change in your life, you know, when you were my age or as you were getting older to start eating more healthier?
Um, I think maybe just looking at, you know, family, and our family, especially on this side, um, diabetes is a strong thing, is a big thing. Diabetes, being a diabetic, um, high blood pressure is a big thing. So you just kind of look at your relatives and, you know, previous generations and how they have maybe passed on and what they passed on from, and you realize maybe I need to take a change to kind of break that cycle. So you know, that kind of made me think in my late 20s to just kind of cut back on certain things like sodas. I haven't had soda in maybe 15 years
Mm.
because soda has a lot of sugar. You know, it's very addictive, very addictive. But sugar is one of them. I try to just substitute that, and a lot of things with, you know, candy bars and all that. I try to substitute that with just fruits, you know, and smoothies and things along those lines. Because again, diabetes in the African American, you know, our demographic, you know, that's a big thing. You know, heart disease and diabetes and things along those lines. So you just kind of open your eyes and realize that, okay, I got to make some changes before it's too late. So that's basically when I started kind of revert and go back another way as far as diet. So
Yeah, I feel you because I know I'm sure you remember the time last year I was just eating just straight up
right,
fast food
I
all.
wasn't gonna say anything, but
I was eating fast food all week long. I mean, I
hmm
think one day I had like Chick-fil-A for breakfast,
yeah,
and then I had like Subway for lunch, and I had Domino's for dinner.
right,
No fruits, no vegetables, and no water, nothing substituted in between. Just all of this grease and all of this
hmm
sugar just going into my body,
right,
and I ended up in the hospital just because I wasn't putting no healthy stuff in my body.
exactly,
And so I think I had turned 19 at the time. So I looked at it, I was like, man, I'm 19.
yeah,
It's time for me to start making a change. Like
hmm
I can have a Five Guys burger every now and then,
hmm
but I need to substitute that with something more healthier because my
right.
body is changing. And
hmm
since it's changing, I need to take care of myself.
I remember that. I remember that. So, I mean, let me just turn the interview around on you. So, what did they say after the when they kind of gave you the diagnosis? What was their suggestion to you?
They pretty much said that, start implementing some healthy stuff into my life.
Right.
You don't need to be eating all this greasy fast food stuff like
Right.
every single day. Like
Right.
it's okay to implement it maybe once, but there's a food plate, and in that food plate you have your carbohydrates, you
Mm-hmm.
have your sugars, and you have all this different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna have Jersey Mike's on one side of the plate, I need to have some fruits and vegetables on the other side of the plate and drink some water, drink some milk. I don't really drink milk,
Right.
but
Right.
to drink something that's healthy. You don't need to be drinking sodas and all these carbonated drinks that's
Mm-hmm.
affecting you. And
Mm-hmm.
so once I did that, I started feeling better. My
Mm-hmm.
skin started, feeling better.
Right.
And I started feeling more energized as a person because
Mm-hmm.
during that time period, I was just tired.
Right.
I would be in school, I'd be at work, and I just had no energy. And it was
Mm-hmm.
all because of my diet. But
Mm-hmm.
once I changed my diet, things started getting better for me.
Right, right. The diet. I'm no professional in diet and things along those lines, but the diet has a big effect on everything. I think, as far as our anatomy and things. It makes you think different. If you eat certain things like fast food, it weighs you down, where you don't want to do anything. Mentally, you're just not there. You kind of fog minded, I guess, and it has a big effect. I remember when your great grandfather, my grandfather, after he had his stroke, um, you know, I guess he was a dark skinned man. So after he had his stroke, he couldn't eat certain things anymore, and they gave him a strict diet. So, I remember going to see him one time in the nursing home, and his complexion had lightened up a lot. I mean, he went from like a dark skinned man to almost a brown complected man. And in my mind, I'm thinking the diet must have had a lot to do with that. Just being so dark skinned at one time, and then your complexion almost like a glow. How they say you have a glow to you.
Yeah.
And I think something about that diet may have did that. Because you just don't lighten up like that. I mean, that's just the way it is. But maybe something in that diet may kind of brought out that kind of did something with his complexion. Where it made whatever was in the system kind of flush itself out. So the diet is very imperative, I think, in our lives. And fast food, I used to eat it all the time, just like you in my 20s. And I used to go to Wendy's like twice, 3 times a week. And then one day it was just like, plus I started seeing the weight gain weight. You put weight on quick. I remember looking at you, like you look at pictures of you now, or look at you now, you look at pictures back then, and you are a lot more solid in your pictures. When I look at you, I was like, man, I don't remember him being that heavy. But and I don't know if it's heavy, but you just look kind of compared to what you look now. You're more slim now. So, but that diet is everything.
Yeah,
So you gotta be mindful of what you're taking in.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was like 3 years ago. I took a picture at like Mexico, and I just looked so like solid. Like I looked big.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I was like overweight or anything,
Right.
but I looked big, and I looked at myself. I was like, I look big in this picture, Mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, Nah. She's like, Nah, you don't look big. You look small in that picture. I was like, No, I look big. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I was eating right at the time in this picture.
Right.
And it's like now I look at myself now. Like everybody says, like I'm more slim, more healthy. Like Nenesh. We had this conversation a few months ago. She was saying I needed to eat more. I needed to eat more basically because I was getting smaller. And I was like, no, I think I'm all right. I'm in the right size.
Right. Right. And you feel it. You could tell if you after you eat certain things, you cut back on certain things, you know if what you're doing is right. You feel different. Again, mentally you feel different. You have energy for stuff. So your body won't lie to you, especially with your diet and if it is agreeing with you or is not agreeing with you. So yeah, I think the diet has a lot to do with it. Along with other things, you're doing too much stress in your life, too much work and all that. That has an effect. But the diet is a big factor in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And so shifting gears from that, I want you to take me down memory lane. Talk to me about your time at Northern High. What was your high school experience like? Was it positive? Did you have any negatives in there? Like, what
Mm.
was high school like for you in the 90s?
Yeah, it was cool. Going to Northern at that time. Well, at that time it was only three high schools, and one was Patuxent, but Patuxent didn't get built until my high school year, till my ninth grade year. So before that, you had Calvin and you had Northern High School, but now you have maybe what four
Yep.
four high schools now. So back then it was just Calvin and Northern. But other than that, it was cool. It was cool. You had your cliques just like I'm pretty sure. Kids coming up today in high school and things. You still have those little cliques, I think. But it was a lot different also because again that social media it wasn't relevant at the time. It wasn't there. So you didn't know what other teenagers in the county or in your area were really doing like that unless they came to your school or you saw them at some kind of party and you mingle with them there. But other than that, you just didn't know. You didn't know. So yeah, I think it was more intimate when you got with your friends at that time because again, social media wasn't relevant. So everything they were doing outside of school, you just didn't know about. It's like, for example, like summer vacation, you could not wait to see what somebody might had looked like when school started back up that following year. 3 months because we would get out early June and we wouldn't go back until after Labor Day. So people could make a huge transition in the way they looked. Some people would gain weight. Some people who were considered heavy set or fat, I guess you want to call it, they would lose weight over the summer and they would look like a totally different person. And you'd just be shocked. And that'd be like for like the first week or two, everybody's talking about this one individual who made a big change. And it was just interesting. It was interesting. So I think that's a big difference between how kids are going to school now and what it feels like in a sense compared to when we were going. It was just a little different. It was a
Yeah.
little different.
Yeah. And that's something I was talking to you about probably like a few weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. Like with social media and everything, with Twitter, it always seems like the high schools here are always in each other's businesses with these student accounts on Twitter. So you'll have Huntingtown beefing with Northern, Calvert will beef with Patuxent, or Calvert's going to be beefing with Northern. And it's just like everybody's in each other's way.
Right.
And it's so much, hostility. And of course, there's going to be school rivalry because, sports and everything, all of that invokes a lot of emotion. But I mean, you see all this pettiness being spewed about, oh, this girl went with this guy at this school, and it's just all this drama, and it's just unnecessary. And I'm sure maybe that was occurring during your time in high school, but it wasn't publicized. It wasn't well known because there was no Twitter back then.
Exactly. So that's just one thing that back then, if you had beef, well, again, it was only two high schools, so the only rivals you had was between those two schools, and that was mainly with sports, for the most part. But other than in the sports, I mean, everybody was pretty much cool, which I'm pretty sure there's a lot of the kids today who are still cool, and they mingle with, people from other schools and high schools and things along those lines. But yeah, if people had certain issues with other, peers of theirs at their school or from another school, you didn't know unless you were in that clique. You just didn't know. Or, you have gossip like a he said, she said type of thing. But it wasn't something that it was broadcast, online and through social media where everybody would know about it. And, you just didn't know. It was just one of those things that if somebody had an issue or there was any kind of school rivalry or beefs like that, you wouldn't know until you went to a party or after some school sporting event like a football game or basketball game where you realize when two people were arguing that they had a problem with one another. But I think that, again, going back on the social media thing, it gives a bullhorn and lets just everything that shouldn't be broadcast. It's shown to everybody, and it's giving everybody a peek behind the curtain of what's on in your life and in your circle's life. And I think certain things shouldn't be just broadcast to everybody like that. That's just how I feel about it. But it's just a different generation now, and how your generation grew up. Like, for example, I think when you grew up, cell phones, like you got your first cell phone at what?
13.
13. So
Yep.
you were 13 years old. So kind of what it was like before then. But kids are growing up now with cell phones and things at like 8, 9 years old. I mean, elementary school kids. So again, they have access to things, and they just know so much. When I feel like they shouldn't know so much, but it's one of those things again that maybe parents, you got to balance out and realize you got to look at the pros and cons. But I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, but I think that it goes back to, again, the social media aspect and everything along those lines, is just giving too much information out there about your life. And I just think you should have a little more of a personal, just have a personal life. But some people, they just put it out there, they put their life out there, and that's not the best thing to do, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, in a way, I'm pretty grateful that my parents gave me my first phone when I was 13, Eventually, they would have had to give it to me because I was getting ready to enter into high school at that point. But, up until then, I wasn't on Facebook at the time.
Right.
You see all your other friends on that stuff, and it's like, at the time, you're young, you see all your peers, all your friends doing that, and it's like, man, I really wish I had a phone. I wish I could, do what they was doing. But, I had no business, being on there.
Right.
And so it's like, once I got the phone, it was just straight up social media. Like, I'm checking out, seeing what everybody's doing, all my peers are doing. And so I don't want to say it held me back in a way, because it kept me hip with everything that was going on.
Right.
But, yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like elementary schoolers shouldn't have cell phones with TikTok and all that. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
We could go on and on about that.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
Yeah, it's just social media. Just it is what it is.
It is. And, it had me think about when we was talking about, for a second, I was thinking about when you said you were giving your cell phone at 13, and sometimes it's parental reasons that a parent gives a child a cell phone. And I think that also leads me back to when we was talking about, changes and just adapting to certain things. Like, we look at the COVID thing and how we may not go back to the old norm in a sense. And, you look at, when we talk about high school and how it was different. I mean, not to be gloomy or, kind of rain down on this podcast, but, you look at like the school shooting epidemic. That's become kind of run rampant right now. And,
right.
When we were coming up, that was unheard of until my last year of school. And then you had the Columbine incident. And we thought that was just a one-off. Like, this was just, some random thing that took place. And this was 99. But now you look at the last 20 years, and there's a serious epidemic with school shootings, it seems like, and it's maybe, I think it might lead to maybe social media. And again, it could be the bullying aspect of things that, people don't have an outlet, who are being bullied, they're not speaking up or anything. So, but that's a serious thing. But that kind of made me think, going back with the cell phone, how things change, parents giving kids cell phones because of, life is getting a little, I hate to say darker in a sense, with, the crimes and things that are happening, the school incidents and everything. So, it's just something to think about with, technology, how our lives are turning, and the world is turning. So, it's some things to think about. That's something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. And before we, shift gears, talk to you about your graduation, whether that was bittersweet for you or not, I'm glad you brought that up. I saw a video on Instagram like last week, and it was of Michael Jackson back in 2003, and like the interviewer asked him, like, why do you care so much about kids? Like, why do you feel like they need to be loved? And he was just like, these kids, they need to be loved. Like, when I think of these kids, they come from broken homes, and it takes me back to when I was a kid. And I feel like that's all these kids need. They just need some love and attention and just care. And, you're throwing a cell phone in front of them. That's basically occupying them momentarily. But it's like, where's the love at? And then, as they grow up, they search for that affection and love, whether that's through physical violence or just drugs, like whatever. Right. And You never know. Cell phones, they have it has its plus, has its benefits. Say you're a kid and you're at a football game by yourself, you need to call
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad up. Hey, can you come pick me up? Like boom, that's perfect. But
Mm-hmm.
it also has its cons also, and I'm glad that we were able to shed some of that here today on the show.
Definitely, definitely. But yeah, yeah. I mean, just talking about that really quick before we shift gears is just technology and just how things are changing. Um, the cell phones and things on those lines. I mean, it's everything. Uh, I don't know. It's just the bullying aspect, like I said, and just certain things taking place where kids feel like they need an outlet. Sometimes it leads to a violent outlet. Sometimes again they just don't have that love and that TLC that you would call it. Growing up, and sometimes you got to just talk. You need to talk. You need an outlet. You need to talk to someone rather than just kind of holding that in and suppressing it inside until you need to find a way to vent, and it's not the best way to vent in most cases. So um, yeah, I feel like for anybody out there that's listening, yeah, you really need to talk. You have to talk to somebody because this mental health issue, that's something that we didn't talk about. And when I was growing up, and the generations previous, you kind of just felt like it was just one of them things. You just having a bad day, or it's just part of life. But yeah, that the mental health awareness, that's a serious thing. So I feel like you definitely need to speak and come forward and just vent out to somebody if you need to, instead of just kind of bottling that up until it becomes a serious problem.
Yeah, I agree. Cause I mean, that was probably my main problem when I first graduated high school. I had all these insecurities and all these problems internally that was just weighing me down. And it's like once you graduate, you're pretty much out here in the real world. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have support from friends and family, but once you're in that room and you're by yourself, you're carrying those thoughts with you. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't talking to anybody about it. So pretty much all that stuff was just building up till
Mm-hmm.
finally, I kind of exploded, not in a angry, kind of aggressive kind of way, but just emotionally, because I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to express myself. Because, like you said, you came from the time period. Pop Up came from that time period. I'm sure Big Daddy came from that time period of just like it's a bad day, just brush it off, and tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true to an extent, but you also have to talk about how you feel inside. I believe transparency is the key to getting through life, allowing your inner circle to see how you feel in order to come up with those solutions to feel better and get you right back on track.
Right. I agree with that. I definitely agree. You got to find an outlet. Basically, you got to be able to express yourself. Um, and when you're feeling that urge, or instead of just going for a walk, sometimes that doesn't always do it. That
Hmm.
doesn't always do the trick. Sometimes you have to go to somebody and just kind of tell them what's going on. You know, and because it's better, I think, to just speak it out and just put it out there, and like you said, be transparent. Well, somebody can understand, and then at that point, sometimes people can once you kind of convey what's going on, people can have an understanding of why you may look a certain way, why you're acting this way, because now they may know those little triggers that you might have in life, and they can kind of help you kind of get through it. You know what I mean? Or help you navigate through it. So I always say, man, just you have to speak to somebody. You have to discuss things. Nobody is God didn't put us in this world just to go through it by ourselves.
Right.
Again, not to be spiritual, but He didn't put us in this world to just go through it by ourselves. So you have to find that support system.
Yep. And I gotta ask you, after you graduated high school, I know you went to college, but you ended up leaving.
Hmm.
What was the reason for that?
Well, I was going to the school that I was going to, not to put names out or anything, but I just felt like, to be honest, um, I felt like the instructors, I wasn't getting what I needed as far as the information, because I was going to school for information technology, and my professors, I felt like they weren't putting the hands on, they weren't giving the hands on, rather just giving us busy work, and I felt like I was going to be paying this kind of money. I feel like my money should go to actually getting the education that I deserve. and I wasn't getting that. So instead of giving me book work and this and that, I just felt like I can find another way. Going through maybe internships and things along those lines. So that's what I did. I just kind of, put that to the school to the side, and I just said I'm gonna go, find some internships and do it that way, and get the actual hands-on experience that I was looking for. But not to knock school. I don't knock school at all. It's just that just make sure you feel like you're getting your money's worth and you're getting the education that you think is going to lead you into the professional career that you're striving for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, kudos to you that you were able to look at yourself, evaluate what you wanted for your life, and say, "Look, I'm not doing this. I don't need to get a degree to get to where I want to, get in life." Most people don't really learn that. They'll go through college, just go through the motions just to get this degree, and then it doesn't really benefit them. But you took a different alternative route, and you still got to where you wanted to be. So kudos to you for that.
I appreciate that. And not knocking school in any kind of way. It's just again, if you're going to school, whether university, a trade school, a community college, what have you, just feel like you're getting your education and you're learning something while you're there. Because in the end, you're the one that's going to either be paying those loans back. If you can pay the money while you're going through, I mean that's great. But the financial aid issue, that's another epidemic that I think they need to focus a little more on, because there's a lot of universities and schools that are making a lot of money off these students, and they're graduating but not really having any, as far as professional, getting into the professional realm after their educational, them 4 years or whatever. They just don't have any kind of guarantee or certainty that going through these 4 or 5 years, 6 years is going to really lead and be promising like the schools are they're claiming that is going to be. So I would say just think long hard if school, but school is good for a lot of people. The school for it benefit a lot of people. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But just don't be in there, based off of what maybe your parents may say you need to go to school, or just assuming what your friends are doing, saying they're going to school. Just make sure this is what you want to do. Some people go to the military and they have great careers going to the Navy, the Army. They get to see the world and things. So I say just make sure you just weighing things and just make sure this is what you want to do. But I mean, school has done wonders for a lot of people that I know. So it's a personal, it's just a personal thing that you got to just weigh within yourself and just say, this is what I want to do. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so with computer science and IT, what sparked your interest in that? Was that something that interested you a lot as a kid?
It did. To some degree. Again, I think it was maybe the money aspect too, because that's something that a lot of adults was talking about, that things are going in the way of technology and computers, and about job security and stuff like that. So I think that's mainly why I went to school for, or started to pursue a career in, computers and technology and things along those lines, because everything seemed to be going that way, with just computers, and everything was based around computers. And, when you see emails and everything, you knew computers was just going to be the thing. So it was just about job security and feeling like, that might be the most promising lane to take. So I think that's why I took it, more than just having a love or interest in it. It was just, I think, the job security part of it. So
yeah, I feel you. Like I've had different mentors, even try and sway me to do IT, do computer science. They pay six figures. There's a lot of job security, and so that was going to be my major when I started at CSM. And I've told you before, like I was sitting in the academic office and I'm looking at all these courses, and it's just a bunch of math courses, and it's just like, I hate math.
Yeah.
Math stresses me out.
Right.
Like I only want to do this once and then get it out the way.
Right.
Unfortunately, I got to take 2 more at Bowie, but I just looked at it as, I don't want to be taught this. Because who's to say that, I'm not coachable in this field. But, hey, I got these skills that I'm good at. Why don't I focus on that, maybe try to apply it to a job? Because I'd rather be happy, going to work, feeling fulfilled, than, being paid all of this money and just dreading, going to work when I'm older and feeling like there's no way out.
Right. And someone I heard once say, and it was recently, matter of fact, They said that, look, I'm trying to make a life, not a living, and sometimes we get so wrapped up in our careers. Basically, I look at it like this. If someone describes themselves, when someone talks to you and you ask them to tell themselves, or they ask you to tell a little bit about yourself. If you start off with saying, well, you talk about your career, then basically your career is your life, And I say you should never get like that in your life. You should do what you love to do. Do what you love to do, but just don't make it the end all be all in your life. When you get a career and you're making six figures, a lot of the times that career is going to take over your life. And sometimes, the money is good, but are you really happy in that career because it's just taking over your life? So if you're going to do something, I say find a love in it. If you can find a love in whatever it is that's going to be your career and your profession, make sure you enjoy doing it. Obviously, I think you're going to have days where it's just rough because it's still work. So, I feel like at least be able to find the good side of whatever it is that you're doing. Don't go to something just because it's paying that six figures, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to just take over your entire life. So again, be able to pick something or find something that you're going to enjoy doing. You got peace of mind. It can almost be therapeutic sometimes. So that's how I feel. And computers is good and everything. And even in my own career, sometimes you think to myself, maybe I should have chose something else. Like I always said, I want to go to acting school.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's never too late, but I don't know. You never know. I mean, Sam Jackson didn't get a big break until he was his mid to late 40s. So you never know. You never know. But yeah, I say just make sure that whatever it is that you think you want to do in life, just see if you find some enjoyment in it. If you want to go to school or you want to be a mechanic, just make sure you have some kind of love for cars or something along those lines, or things along those lines, basically. But just find some enjoyment, I think, in whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, and I wish some of that was like really stressed more, when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course it was stress, Oh, you have to go to college, you should figure something else out. But it was always a case of, oh, we have SATs you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have ACTs you have to do. You need to pass this HSA,
Mm-hmm.
pass this test, do, all of this stuff. And, we're not focusing on our future and what we want and what's going to be expected of us once we leave high school. I remember graduation night, I walked out of Showplace Arena and you said to me, welcome to the real world.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, like I'm in the real world now. But it's just like that stuff, nothing really prepared me. I feel like in life, nobody can prepare you for anything. It's just you have to experience it and you have to go through it. It's almost like with a pregnancy, and I think I've made this analogy before. A mother and a father can read all of these self-help books for months and months on end, take all these classes, but once they have that child, that child could be completely different from what was explained in the book, and so it just throws them off guard. So I don't know, maybe the teachers at Huntingtown or here in Calvert County, maybe they wouldn't have been able to prepare us for the real world, but maybe I would have liked some tips on how to, adapt to it. But, it's like I said earlier, everything you go through in life is meant to grow you and shape you into your current self now.
Right.
So, you never know. You never know.
Right. And that's a huge problem that a lot of adults, young adults feel, honestly, but a lot of adults in general feel like what is being taught in school is not necessarily, some things are being they're missing as far as educators in the school system, as far as preparing kids and young adults for the real world. Talking about credit, retirement, investing. Some don't know how to write a checkbook, write a check. So these are things that I think are being overlooked in school systems as far as preparing young adults and teenagers as far as how to deal with the real world and certain things. It's not all about just a career. It's other things that you need to prepare for. Like you talk about, pregnancy and preparing for having a child. And I think there were some, I don't know if they still do it, but I do believe they used to do that in school where they had like not just home ec, but they would teach young teenage girls about childbirth and caring for a baby. Like I don't know if they did that. Did they do that when you were in school?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you never saw. So they basically you would see some teenage girls walking around with baby dolls.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, they did. I remember now. Yes.
Okay,
There was a girl in my chemistry class.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember now. Yes.
Right. So I think they should kind of go that outlet on top of education, but I think you should also learn about the actual parts of adulthood. Again, like I said, about credit, investing, just loans, financial aid. They don't really explain financial aid and then you kind of are left with these huge loans that you have to pay back, tuition and things along those lines. So there's just some things I think schools should kind of invest more time in rather than just foreign languages or computers and typing and things along those lines. So it's one of those things that maybe they'll kind of realize as time goes on and say we'll invest more of a program to these things rather than just math and algebras and all that type of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. But I want to talk to you about your current job now. Obviously, you're working with the PG County school systems. What led you to get that job? Talk to me about that entire process.
Well, actually, I was working close to home, and it was borderline half internship, actual career almost. But the internship, it just felt like I was learning, but I just wasn't learning fast enough. And the gentleman I was working under, after about 3 years, I felt like, okay, I think I have enough knowledge and I'm doing a good enough job where I should be compensated for it. So it seemed like he just couldn't, I guess, compensate me for my work, which I was doing really good work, I feel personally. And, I just don't think I was getting paid for what I was doing. So I had to go online and start doing some research as far as openings and things, in my field. So I applied for the school system, and they got back to me. And, I spoke to them and told me this is what they were willing to pay me. And, he said he couldn't do it. So I had no choice but to go. And basically that's how I ended up in the school system.
Wow, got you. It's crazy how your plans work out and how, God does things. I'm not trying to get into a spiritual topic or anything, but it's like you think your life is going to go in one direction, but then something happens and it forces you to go off of the plan that you had planned, and then something bigger happens and you take it.
Yeah, you have to. Sometimes, you'll be pushed into a situation and you don't mean to, but sometimes it's just undeniable to say, okay, I have to take this. I have to take this opportunity. It seems too good. I've thought about it. I waited, and here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take that leap of faith. And I was nervous about it because some things that were asked of me or some of the tasks that were required, I didn't know if I was, up to par as far as being able to deliver. But I just said I had to just take that leap. So I took it, and I've been there several years now. So, yeah, I say, sometimes you just have to go. You have to take that step when you feel like you're in a rut or you're in a place where you're not growing or you're just not getting what you deserve, especially if you feel like you've been putting in the effort and the work. Sometimes you have to find a different way and you just have to take it and, leave it all in God's hands.
Yeah, I feel you because, I've had those moments in my life where I felt like I needed to do something different or something just needed to change. And so I feel like we all have our fears and we all have our doubts, but sometimes we just got to take that leap of faith because we never know how it will positively benefit us. And of course you're going to have negatives. Of course there are going to be things that you're going to learn from, but it's all about, what am I going to gain from this? So that's how I look at it.
Right. That's a good way to look at it. That's definitely a good way to look at it. Sometimes it's not going to turn out in your favor when you were expecting one outcome. You may get something totally different when you took that leap. But, like I always say, whatever you go through, you got to get an understanding. And when you get that understanding, you can use that as a tool to kind of guide you in making the next decision when those important decisions come up. So it's not always going to turn out in your favor when you feel like this is a great thing to jump into, but sometimes you got to take that jump.
Right.
So regardless, mistakes are made. That's why pencils have erasers on. So, so you have to just take the leap, and you got to take the chance, and you take those risks. Not always taking risks, because sometimes risks just are too obvious to say, all right, this is not going to work. So let me just fall back and just continue on this path that I am until the next opportunity comes. But again, when those opportunities come, sometimes it's just you have to take it.
Mm-hmm. So what comes next in your life? What are some of the goals and dreams, aspirations that you feel like you want to expand on as you continue to progress in this life?
Well, I think two things as far as and I think we spoke not too long ago about me just going into programming side of things and maybe working on apps and things along those lines because apps I think are good, even though we've just been kind of bad talking technology as far as social media and cell phones, but
yeah,
being able to write a program, I think, or just create something I think that people can benefit or use. That would really be nice. So I think I've been kind of placing focus on programming and coding to that point where I can maybe build something that might be able to benefit people. Aside from that, just getting closer to the Lord, my God, just because especially right now, since again we spoke about the COVID and things along those lines, you just need a foundation. You need something that you can lean on, especially politics, what's going on in politics, and you got this side who's so adamant about the other side, and there's a lot of tension and things. So you got to just stand in the middle and just kind of, just be content and find peace within yourself in such a world with so much commotion right now and turmoil, and that's basically what it is. Just trying to grow, in the Word and just finding peace and contentment with anything that's taking place in my own personal life, and just go from there.
Yep. And so my final question to you before I go ahead and wrap this session up. I've had a great conversation with you.
Always.
In life, I believe you've always heard the expression of, do you have any regrets for the life that you've lived? And some people will say yeah, or some people will say no, I don't want to take it back. If you look at your life, do you have any regrets on how you've lived your life? And if so, would you change anything or wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I can't speak for anybody else, but I have regrets, and personally, some people might not, they might not feel fine to what I'm going to say, but I'm pretty sure in our lives when we go through something and we do something in the moment, realizing the consequence that you have to deal with, I'm pretty sure you would wish that you did not take those actions or make that decision. So I would say that's a regret. We all somewhere down the line wish we could kind of just rewind time, even for just a couple of minutes, just to go another way or just to make that the right decision. So as far as regrets, I have quite a few. As far as what decision, I mean, some could be just relationships, not to get too deep into it, but just, hanging out with certain crowds of people that, just don't benefit you and just kind of lead you astray in a sense where, you feel you should be taking this road, but somehow being your peers are doing this, you feel like, you want to be along with them and have a good time. So I think that's a regret, just picking and choosing the right group of people to be in your life and just, kind of sorting out, the negative. But, that's a decision. Career-wise, I still would say, if I could go back, rewind time, maybe 20 so years, I would probably either pursue acting, even though that sounds like, that's far-fetched for a lot of people, but it could be acting, or maybe go to school to be a doctor, because I think every family needs a doctor. So that would be something I would try to pursue and really pursue it heavily to be the best, the best doctor I could be, to take care of my own family members and things along those lines. So, yeah, career wise, I think, if I had the choice, I would go back and do those things. But I have certain regrets in life that, you can't do anything about it now, but what you could do is take what you know and give it to the next generation and tell them, give them the advice that of things that and you've learned over time, the wisdom that you gain, and you share that with the next generation and the next generation, so they learn what not to do and what to do. Obviously it's going to be their own personal decision to take that advice, but at least you could try to share it with them and hopefully guide them in the right direction. But that's what I try to use now.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was listening to a motivational speech last night, and the guy said, look, I have, 2 young kids. I'm not trying to live this life to be good for myself. I'm living this life to be good for them and to be good for the next generation of my family to come, because I want to be able to give back to them and show them that I worked this hard to provide for them. And everything that I did in my life was for them, be it the good or bad. So I'm totally glad you just said that.
Yeah. Basically, like the movie Pay It Forward. I don't know if you remember that movie. I mean, I don't know if you were born just yet. But yeah, basically you just pay it forward. So when something good comes into your life, you have to pay it forward and give it to that next person. Whether that comes from, sometimes it could be financial gain. When you find something financially gainful, you share it with the next person. That person shares it with the next person. Sometimes it can be information. Because I think people sometimes want to withhold information just so they don't have anybody one up them. They want to keep the information, so they always have leverage. Rather than for the next person coming through that door, sharing the information with them so they know where to be and how to handle things, instead of just setting them up when they get there. So, you just gotta pay it forward. So even whether it's wisdom, you share that wisdom with the next generation and the young, and hopefully they'll use that and it'll get them to where they need to be, and then they'll share that information with the next group coming up behind them. And I think the world will work a lot better if we were able to do things like that. But not to say everybody's not doing that, but I think it would be a lot better if people just kind of had that mindset that we're all in this thing together.
Yep. Well, Sean, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for this interview, this conversation. Probably one of my best ones yet. And
anytime.
Just thank you so much.
Oh, anytime. And I like what you're doing here on this podcast right now. I try to listen, when I get a chance, and I'm proud of what you're doing. And hopefully, everything that you have going on here, someone out there is listening, and they can benefit from it. And I guess it can incite them or encourage them to basically, do something similar, or give them the courage to whatever their fears, but yet their hope is, they can go ahead and pursue it without hesitation. So I think what you have going on here is very positive, and I like to see what the future holds for it.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right, no problem.
All right, this wraps up episode 41 of the Said Talks podcast. Remember to stay blessed and stay encouraged, and I'll talk to y'all soon.